Hi, I'm Sjoerd. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the key housing of your Ford Flip key, moving from the old housing to a brand new one. Here's how we get started. I'll set the new one aside for a moment. We open the battery cover on the back, and then we take out the battery for a moment. I'm doing that with a flathead screwdriver, and depending on which version you have, there may be a screw here. It's also possible that there's no screw here, or that there are two small ones, but any screws you can see need to be unscrewed. If you don't see any screws, that's not a problem. There might be a bit more glue around the edges, but basically that won't be a problem when transferring it in a moment. Now we're going to take a pair of pliers, and the arms of these pliers we place under the spot where the key normally folds shut. And what we want to do is move the arms of the pliers apart in a moment. So I position the pliers in place and I move the arms apart. As you can see, the key blade is always under tension and it can spring loose the moment that tension is released. I'll set this aside for a moment. And here we can now see the circuit board that we're going to transfer in a moment. Well, and while filming this instruction, we found out that unfortunately we had grabbed the wrong housing and that we just ran out of the correct one in stock. So I'm just going to show it again with the original key. And you can simply keep following the same steps with your brand new housing. So we open the key blade again and remove the battery cover. Usually with a new key, the battery isn't screwed in but is loose, so always check that first before you open it up. And now we can either pull the two halves apart or again use a pair of pliers to separate the two halves. Well, the first step is very simple. We take the circuit board and place it neatly in position. Just check the back to make sure you can see all three legs of the battery holder properly here. And also check that all the cutouts in the casing fit properly through the circuit board. Well, that's all good here, so I'll set this aside for a moment. As for the key blade, this is how it works. There are two options to make sure your key is once again fitted with a cut key blade. And option one is to simply go to a locksmith and have them cut it for you. That usually costs between euros 10 and 20 euros, and in the end it saves you quite a bit of trouble. And I always prefer to recommend that to everyone, but it is also possible to transfer the key blade. Because here we can see a flip mechanism in the whole assembly. That's this round block here. And here we have the key blade. That's the part we see sticking out here, which actually goes into the lock. And these two halves are connected to each other by a retaining pin that sits in between them. You can place a small nail here and remove the retaining pin. Once that's done, you can slide the two halves apart, replace it with the correct one, and then tap the retaining pin back in. That's because the flip mechanism only works with the new key. There are actually many different types of flip mechanisms, so often the original doesn't match the new one, which means you'll need to transfer the key blade this way. However, this can be quite a challenging task, since during the process the key can often shift, the retaining pin might not stay in place properly, or it could end up crooked. That's why I often recommend just going to a locksmith for this. We're going to put it back together. And I'll start by taking the button that you normally press to make it flip open. Here we can see that there are 4 notches, each with a different size. It only fits into the flip mechanism in one way. And that wasn't really the right one for us. There we go, now we've got it. And we have a little spring. On one side of the spring, you can see a small piece sticking out. That part with the pin should be positioned at the top. We place the spring into the flip mechanism and turn it around a bit until it drops in a little deeper. Next, we take the rest of the key again, and that little pin sticking out from the spring is important because we want that pin to be pointing to the side in a moment. Here's how we're going to position it and put it under tension. We want the black pin that sticks out here in the casing to end up inside the spring. And we want the pin from the spring to sit in a designated notch which points slightly to the left. Now we turn the key 180 degrees until it points upward again, and you'll probably have some trouble getting it into place because of course it really wants to release its tension. Having done that, we now also place the top part of the key back on and firmly snap the whole thing shut. Check to see if it flips open smoothly. And also make sure that all the buttons here press properly. Then we put the screw back in its place and tighten it securely. And now we insert the battery. With the battery, it's important that the text always faces up and that you use a CR2032 battery. I first place it here under the plastic and then I press it down at the bottom. At this point, it should stay firmly in place. And finally, we also put the battery cover on, and that's how you transfer your key to a brand new casing. Hopefully, everything went well with transferring your key casing. If you didn't quite manage, you'll find our contact information in the description below this video, or you can leave a comment under this video and I'll be happy to help you further. Success!